That's it. Let's get started. We are in the middle of this essay. Tonight, things will start coming around full circle, or hopefully by the end, you'll see why I'm using this as, call it the coda to all that we learned about Kiddush HaChodesh, Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Chodesh, etc. So page Nun Vav by Ot Vav. That's what we're up to. Nun Vav, Ot Vav. Ba'asher al kein nira. Dechol adinim ha'mesurim lebeitin hagadol v'hamenuyim b'mishnah Sanhedrin Bet Amud Aleph v'Rambam Parakim Hilchot Sanhedrin Halacha Aleph nimsur lechatchila Sanhedrin Gedola ve'ein lahem shum zika l'dat Yisrael u'ma'aseihem u'mekor samchut beitin hagadol b'nogel dvarim halalu hi parshat zaken mamrei shel v'kamta ve'alita kuvad chaluto shel beitin hagadol shu machriya tamid v'halacha kemota b'chol makom ve'eno tzrichim l'shum halacha acheret. It's a very big sentence. When the Mishnah at the beginning of Masechet Sanhedrin outlines the powers given to the Beit Din Hagadol, they're judicial powers. They in the Rambam in Hilchot Sanhedrin and Parak Hey, also we're talking about the elements related to their authority as the Beit Din Hagadol. It's all learned from Parshat Zaken Mamre, which is in Parashat Shoftim, Parak Yud Zayin of Sefer Dvarim. The Kamtav Alita, that's the authority of the Beit Din Hagadol. They decide, the halacha follows them. There's no Supreme Court beyond that Supreme Court. And we don't need any other halacha. Lamashal, the Rav gives some ideas. Din Navi Sheker, Kohen Gadol, Irani Dachat, Husaf ala Ir, Vazor, Chotz B'dvar Me'elu Debai Sanhedrin, Tlun B'gmar Din Sanhedrin Gedola. All of these things require the psak of the Beit Din Hagadol. Therefore, they operate in their role as a judiciary. This is in their function as the authority in terms of teaching something, interpreting something. It could be, by the way, legislating something, but they're all under the judicial banner, if you will. Bram, however, Kiddush HaChodesh Nimsor l'Sanhedrin al Pishita the Rambam hi halacha chadasha she'ena tluya kula b'parshat v'kamta v'alita v'chulei al pi haTorah she'yorucha v'yikara nema rak b'din hora'ah. However, when it comes to Kiddush HaChodesh that's given over to Beit Din, the Rambam maintains is a new halacha. It is not based on the parsha in Sefer Dvarim chapter 17 v'kamta v'alita, and you'll listen to the Torah as they will teach it to you. That has to do with the function of Hora'ah, teaching. Lashon Torah. Hora'ah, teaching, instruction. Ela bokad ve'olah, when it comes to Kiddush HaChodesh, that is going to break through and rise up. Gami parshat hayom shel esfali shivim ish v'chulei asher yadati kim zei knei ha'am v'shtot rav. Esfali shivim ish, parshat. Any takers? No, we didn't actually just lane it. Ba'alotcha. Gather these 70 men that you know that the Ziknei Am the Sotrim. That's the source for the idea that the act of the Beit Din Hagadol is an act representing the whole Jewish nation. It's not true the Beit Din that's doing it. They're merely the representation of the nation in making that happen. Really, it's the whole Jewish nation. Lefichach lo nishna din zeb mishnah b'Sanhedrin bet Amud Aleph. The Rav says that's why, not accidentally, in the beginning of Masechet Sanhedrin, it lists all the different functions of the Sanhedrin Hagadol. It very obviously and conspicuously omits Kiddush HaChodesh as one of their functions. Why? Because it doesn't belong in that category. And further, that's when the Rambam, Parak Hey of Hilchot Sanhedrin, when he's trying to list off all the functions of the Beit Din Hagadol, he doesn't mention Kiddush HaChodesh Harei Hushach L'Sug Acher Legamre, because another type of function of the Beit Din Hagadol when it comes to Kiddush HaChodesh. V'tzei Ulmad, go out and learn, right? Tzei Ulmad, yeah, like from the Haggadah. Ki HaMishnah Hi Shmita Gam et HaHalachas Sanhedrin Regel Kibush Rabim. Note that the Mishnah also omitted the function of the Sanhedrin when it comes to what's called the Kibush Rabim, the conquest of land on behalf of the nation to expand the borders. Every country has this capability, right? You require the Beit Din Hagadol Not necessarily going to do that, but I'm just saying this is what nations did over time. So mishum the tchilato shel kibush einat tluya beit din hagadol kim bedat rov Yisrael. Also, not on the list of things the Beit Din HaGadol does through their authority as this high court, but rather as representatives of the Jewish people, and the functions that are representational don't belong in the same on the same page. They belong, but they're a different function. Larry, please.
Yeah.
I'm getting there now. Let's go. Yeah. Page Nun Zion. Venira. The Alpha Bishishita the Rambam he got the Gam Bisman Hazeh. Shana Osim and Amodim Api Chesbon. Din Kviyut Ne'amar. Even though the Rambam has a shita that even today, when we're doing the holidays based on a calculation, we're still talking about the need to be koveya in some way. Mishum demoadim einam chalim elehem v'Yisrael mekad shelahu. They are not going to be chal on their own. Klal Yisrael is mekadesh the chodesh. Klal Yisrael is mekadesh the holidays through their observance of the holidays. And even though the Rambam holds that we call malakom, nonetheless, Chaluka cholot shem kviyat mo'adim al pi cheshbon midin kiddush hachodesh al pi yariyah. There's still going to be a distinction in two ways. Vishtei drachim mishuna kviyat hachodesh al pi yariyah mikviyat al pi cheshbon. There's still going to be two different ways, two ways to differentiate. He's going to outline what those two things are, and then we'll get to Larry's all-important question, and with a thesis, we'll come full circle. Brace yourself. It's going to be exciting. So I don't say it about everything, but a lot of things I do. So two different ways. Of course, in my exuberance when I originally learned this back in 2006 or something, 2007. So I wrote down, I put in a square, Harishon Hasheni, to see it on the page. What's the Hevdel Rishon, the Hevdel Sheni, here on page Nun Zayin. Let's learn it inside. He explained it again, the difference between Kiddush al Pi Re'iyah, Kiddush al Pi Cheshbon, despite the fact that the Rambam seems to hold that you always need a kviyut. The kviyut is either going to be done by the Beit Din or by the Jewish nation.
But would there also be in that differentiating thing, if you're going to say there's an administrative role to the
Sanhedrin Gadol,
then that would be another level of requirement, right? That should have something different than a judiciary.
That's what they're doing.
I understand, but it's so does it come together there as well? Or are you saying that within the administrative level of the Sanhedrin, you only need Re'iyah, or you only need Chesbon, or you need
Well, the Rambam, remember, held that it's on two separate tracks.
right.
But either way, even if it's Kiddush al Pi Cheshbon, the Rambam somehow holds you also need the kviyut. And we're starting to see that the end of the mystery here is that the kviyut, the establishment, is really in both cases happening by the Jewish people. Either the representation of the Jewish people, called the Sanhedrin, that's the Kiddush al Pi Re'iyah, or without a Sanhedrin, by the Jewish people, but it's still a kviyut. So now what's the difference between these two models? Just to sharpen it up, he gives you two here. Second paragraph, I have the Rishonu, the kviyat hachodesh al pi re'iyah tlu b'maseh kviyah v'kiddush, right? V'harei shitat harambam hi the kiddush ma'akev ayin beperek bet mihilchot kiddush hachodesh l'chachet. When you do it al pi re'iyah, you need an act of maseh v'kiddush, and that's the sheet of the Rambam. The kiddush is actually ma'akev, but the act of kiddush, it's not going to work. V'afilu l'dat haramban the sorah b'sagotov l'sefer mitzvah rasei kufnan gimel the kiddush ain't ma'akev. He thinks that no, it's not me'akev. You have to actually literally have the ceremony. Mikol makom. Nonetheless, he also agrees. The Ramban agrees. Ika chalot maseh kviyah. There's going to be some beginning or what's the word? Onset of the act of kviyah. As you see in many places. V'gam hu ba'atzmo yidgish et zeh. Quote. Kevin shiskima da'at beitin. End quote. Uchamokein ba'avur hashana. Yashna, B'ibur Hashana, Yashna Chalot Maseh Kviyah, Hamaberet Hashana. You're going to need some kind of action. Everyone agrees, the agreement, the assent, whether it's a formal declaration or not. The Rambam has more of a formal view of it, but they both agree that when it's Kiddush al Pi Re'iyah, you need some kind of a Maseh Kviyah and Kiddush, even if it's not Li'ikuva, it's really still supposed to happen. Underlined line, Bram, however, Kviyat hachodesh al pi cheshbon ha'emtzai means, according to the cheshbon ha'emtzai, means the average calculation that we have. Chala umitkayemet al yedei kiyum v'niyog hamoadim atzmam. The bezeh gufa, that one is established through the upholding the fulfillment of the holidays themselves. Through that itself, the Yisrael shomim ben hamoadim al pi cheshbon zeh v'somchim alav nikba'im hachodashim v'ashanim. That establishes the months and the years. Umikre de Yisrael mekachil izmanim ve'ein anu zikukim l'maaseh kviat miuchadet v'kiddush b'fnei atzmo. So it's not that we're stuck. We have no Beit Din. Now we'll have to have this fallback system called the Chesbon. It's that if we don't have the Beit Din, we're not stuck. It just means instead of having the Beit Din represent the Jewish nation will have to represent itself, and it does. Yom Kippurim, Shenagu Kol Bnei Bavel B'Kedusha, Hariyah Yom Kippurim Amiti Al Pi Halacha Shel Atem Afilu Shogigim. We had that Tosfot that we saw. We looked at inside. We saw it also in this essay where this fellow came from Eretz Yisrael and he shows up to tell them, okay, get ready for Yom Kippur. And they say, Yom Kippur is over. What do you mean? So no, it's coming now. So they were going to fast 2 days in a row, apparently, or they could have, but they decided not to. They said, oh, we decided, they end up asking him on a technicality, were you there when they announced? So I wasn't there. It was pretty obvious they were going to, because they didn't make Rosh Hashanah after 29 days of Elul this year. They made it on day 30. They said, okay, tomorrow's going to be Rosh Hashanah, so I knew. So they said, yeah, then you missed the actual declaration, and we already observed Yom Kippur because we thought, since by the law of averages, to 99.9999% of the time, since the days of Ezra Sofer, they never made a leap. They never added a day to Elul. It was always 29 days. So they observed it on the wrong day. So they give 1 second. Tosfot said, even if you made a mistake, no, Tosfot didn't make it up. They got it from Chazal. Elam odeh Hashem tikru otam mikrai kodesh without a vav means whatever you decide. Atem is the limud of Chazal. Whatever you learn, you decide. That's what's going to be, right? So they weren't trying to go against the whole Jewish nation in Eretz Yisrael. They didn't actually do an act of saying Mekudesh. Mekudesh didn't have a Beit Din there to do that. They decided, since it's always been this way, 99.999% of the time for the days of Ezra, and now we're holding by Bayit Sheni, so I assumed that we counted up 29 days of Elul. The next day was Rosh Hashanah. The next day was Rosh Hashanah. That's 2. Next day was Tzom Gedalia. That's 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We observed Yom Kippur like we normally do. Against that, we have to admit, the fact that they did the holiday, even if it was on the wrong day, that was Koveya the Chodesh. Give me 1 more second, Larry. I didn't forget you. I just want one more sentence to finish it. Even though it's true, the Rav admits. What the Tosfot explain here is really challenging. There was obviously a Kiddush al Piriyah, in that case, you weren't really allowed to decide on your own anyway. You had to wait for the Beit Din, for the news from the Beit Din. It's still clear. Kiddush Zmanim, Chal al Yedei Shmirat V'Asiyat HaMoadim. There is a Kiddush, but who's doing it? The Jews are doing it by keeping the Yom Tov. Larry, you were first, please.
2 things. How was Mar Cheshbon, assuming no Eidim, how is Mar Cheshbon fixed? Or is the answer to my question that once they were Koveya Tishrei, you just
alternated? So at some point they did make that the case when we were doing everything up in Cheshbon, but until they made that the situation, namely with the calendar that was set, then they would wait every month. We said they're going to figure out how many days was it, 29, 30? Wasn't clear.
So
month to month.
What he said here is the Kaviyah would be because the Jewish people would observe.
They decided, and they kept Rosh Hashanah, so that was Rosh Hashanah for them. And they kept Yom Kippur when they thought it was.
What's difficult for me is they're saying, well, the Jewish people declared it. And a lot of Jewish people, thank God, but they needed a legislative or a juridical body to do this.
So then this case, and the Rav admits it's a Shvera Maisa, because there was a Beit Din Yerushalayim when this happened. So why did they just take it on themselves to do it by themselves? But the fact is they did it. And when this fellow came and he said, did you hear them announce it? Or you just assumed because they didn't make Rosh Hashanah on day 30 of Elul like they usually have done since every year since Ezra? He said, I didn't hear it. I said, okay, then we don't have to listen to you. We already did it today, and that's the end of it.
Question I asked earlier about Nafkamina, that's coming.
Thanks for reminding me your question. I told you we're getting there. I didn't lie. We're getting there.
So-
We're getting there. We difference one, difference two, and then the nafkamina. Yep.
So, this explanation works very well for Tishrei, where Rosh Hashanah is right at the beginning of the month, but all of the other Moadim are further into the month. So are we saying that those months weren't Bikoveya except retroactively, that by the 15th of Nisan,
Nachon.
we're suddenly Koveya
Nachon.
Kodesh retroactively?
Nachon.
That's why
Nachon.
I raised the question, how are you Koveya Chesbon? There's no holiday in Chesbon.
Right. So in the not to skip too far ahead, but clearly the synchronized swimming of all of Klal Yisrael to the same rhythm means that when they are going to observe Pesach will be the same time, because they've decided that there's a calendar that's going to alternate months back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, because there's no message coming from central headquarters. And therefore, yes, the fact that they will keep the holiday of Pesach on the 15th of Nisan will show that when they had decided it was Aleph Nisan as a one-day Rosh Chodesh, as it typically is, was also somehow connected to that act of Kviyut. That is basically what the Rav is trying to say. He hasn't gotten to the main punchline yet, but that is one of the main things he's trying to say. Stop thinking about, we're just trying to figure out how it works on a calendar. It's not the case for the Rambam that that's all that's happening. The Jewish people, every time we observe a Yom Tov, and when there aren't Yom Tovim, right? So then what is it, right? But you understand that depending on how many days has Tishrei, and Mar Cheshvan is going to determine when Klal Yisrael is going to have Pesach. Because if they all have 29 suddenly, or they'll have 30, then Pesach's going to come out at another time, right? So not all over the map. So obviously there's some kind of common standard that's been agreed upon by who and by when, that we are alternating months.
Well, we don't strictly alternate, though. I mean,
We're almost strictly alternating.
almost, but-
We have a calendrical system. The calendrical system has some kind of way that it functions. The Rav's point is, don't think that the only way we know and we're Makadesh the Chodesh is that we're not Makadesh the Chodesh. We're just sitting around looking in calendars, and we happen to do it on the day in memory of the day when it once was. No, when we're doing the Yom Tovim, we're Makadesh the Chodesh now. We're Makadesh the Moadim, Makadesh Yisrael v'Azmanim. That's what's happening. And the fact that we also around that have arrayed the months in the calendar. By the way, it's a mirror image, isn't it? Well, give me 1 second. It's a mirror image. In the days of Kiddush al Pira'iyah, you were looking to the Beit Din to tell you the beginning of the month, and from there you would start calculating when the Yom Tov was. Here it's the opposite. It's the negative from the days of, remember everyone here knows the camera. So there was negatives. You developed it from the so it's everything's reversed. So now it's that the holidays that we're keeping are actually the support structure that enable the calendrical months that come and go, such as they do. 2 days. By the way, Chodesh Tov, everybody, right? It's Rosh Chodesh Adar now. It's the first day of Rosh Chodesh Adar, which is not actually Adar. Someone's asking me earlier. It's still Shvat. Last day of Shvat. There was no such thing as a 2-day Rosh Chodesh back in the day, because it was either today or today meaning tonight, tomorrow, or the next day. It wasn't a 2-day, but we have now a 2-day affair. Okay, so all right, let's keep going. Okay, question. Yeah.
No, just quickly. I just wanted to say. I mean, it was. We already said it before that we know when Pesach has to come out in Chodesh. That's the whole point of having an Adar Sheni, was to make Pesach fall out in the springtime.
That's true. Who is deciding that? The
Okay.
Sanhedrin Agada was deciding that, but
Right.
the Sanhedrin Agada is a count. I'm out of copies. Bruchim Abayim.
Okay.
Chaim?
Yeah.
Stonehill?
Yeah.
Sternthal. Nice to meet you. Chaim Sternthal, on Yaddo Hospital, Eretz Yisrael, visiting. Okay, I identified you. Okay, nice to meet you. Tzvi Engel, you're in the Gemara sheet. Okay, Kiddush al pi Re'iyah. So they didn't know 1 month to the next, 1 year to the next is going to be Ibra Chodesh or not. But once there's a calendar, so it is a certain rhythm. We do know when it's going to be, but don't think it's being done thanks to looking in a calendar. Au contraire, the fact that we're going to have Pesach in a year that's a leap year in Chodesh Nisan, the 50th of Nisan, by the common a common standard of Klal Yisrael, is actually the Kiddush of the Moed is what's fueling, so to speak, the Kiddush HaChodesh at this time. But there's still a Kviyut. Only the kviyut's not really happening in Rosh Chodesh, even though you announced very beautifully from the Ezra's Torah Luach when the Molad is, and whoever does it in West and in 7:45 minutes, right? Everything announce it. You're reporting what's going on in Eretz Yisrael, but that's not really driving things anymore. What's really driving it? The Klal Yisrael will all be observing the Yom Tov on the same day. That's what's going to be driving. This is the negative.
That's retroactive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now look, a parenthesis here, Nun Zayin at the bottom, second to last paragraph. Val Yavo Shov Yishal Halo Shmir Ad Moadim Ba La'achar Kviyat HaChodesh V'Ibur HaShana Ve'ech Nikbaim HaChodashim Mitabim HaShana Mikodem. Don't come and ask me. The keeping of the holidays comes after you've established the months, and you've established the leap year. How can you establish the months and be me'aber the shana beforehand? Kipir chazu, says the Rav, ein tzricha lifnai v'lifnim. We don't need it anywhere. It's doche completely. Da'uvda atzma, she saw shomrim v'osim et amodim al pi cheshbon zeh, v'chei nagu mimot Abaye v'Rava, 3rd century, common era. Uve'oto cheshbon yachziku ad biyad hagoel, kovad et hachodashim, 4th century common era. Et hachodashim v'et seder hashanim hapshutot v'amubarot b'shaitan. Gufa shal hitnagut b'cheshbon v'asiyat hamodim al piv kovad et hazmanim hachodashim v'ashanim. Exactly what I just said with the negative. Instead of looking at the picture, looking at the negative of it. Stop looking at it. Kviyat HaChodesh. Start thinking about it as the holidays. The fact that we keep the holidays when we do tells us that the other dates in between them, 15 days here to one side and 15 days to the other, i.e. the Rosh Chodesh on the other side, is also part of the mix. That's what the Rav is saying in this little paragraph. Don't start asking me, well, there's no Kviyat HaChodesh. We've been doing this way. What's holding up the system is the Kviyat Moadim by Klal Yisrael through the Shmira of the Moadim. Mekadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim. We don't have the apparatus. We don't have the apparatus today to have Kviyat HaChodesh al Piriyah. We just don't have it. There's no Sanhedrin Gadol. They haven't reconvened, so we can't do that anymore. So you think, there's no Kviyut anymore. No, there is a Kviyut. The Kviyut is happening on the Yom Tovim that are observed by all Jews everywhere the same way. There's the rhythm. It's the synchronized swimming. Everybody's doing it to exactly the same rhythm. And then the 15 days before, 15 days after, okay, that's going to be the time frame for when you're going to announce Kiddush HaChodesh. And when are you going to do Chesbon and Mar Chesbon and Kislev? Well, that's going to be impacting when you're going to do Purim and Pesach, and you keep going. Shavuot, v'chulei. Okay, I'll take a few questions, and then we got to move on to Abdel Shani. Marcus first, and then come back to you. Yeah, please.
So there is no, according to the Rav, there is no real Riyah anymore.
No, nobody holds the Riyah.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
But they're not even a symbolic one.
Right.
Not even one that.
No.
Right.
No, there doesn't need to be.
Right.
Now, ideally, get back to one, but I'd be a gold set.
Have this, now I'm confused because Ramban said you needed Riyah still, right?
No.
Ramban.
No, well, what the Ramban said is, well, what can we do? We're stuck. We don't have Kviyut. We don't have Kiddush HaChodesh al Pi Riyah. So you have this auxiliary power. We have a generator going to keep us on a lifeline. What's the generator? It's a calendar. No, well, we're good because everything's on hold. The Rav says, according to the Rambam, no, it's not on hold like that. It's still going. It's going now, but it's not being powered by the Beit Din HaGadol, because the Beit Din HaGadol's power from the first place was from where? Klal Yisrael. So that's still going, because it's still a Klal Yisrael. We can get back to the system.
That power doesn't exist in the.
Nachon. Larry, I see you look confused, perplexed, confounded.
More than usual.
It's all my fault. Yeah.
No. That's other.
Okay.
The Rav, if I understand it correctly, the Rav is saying that by virtue of the unanimity of the Jewish people observing that date.
Yamim Tovim. Yamim Tovim.
Yom Tov. That would mean that 12 times a year, there is a nace that is incomprehensible, and that is that all the Jewish people all agree unanimously on one thing.
We do.
Okay. Ain't something been this.
Yeah, but something on Nace, but this was
I
happening.
would suggest, and that's why I'm having difficulty, Rob was saying, really, with all due respect to the Rav, aren't they really looking at the wall at the calendar and saying, hey, today is Pesach?
Yes, of course they are.
but why is the Rav then writing it in terms of the unanimity? Of
because the point is that the ratification, according to the Rambam's view of what Chazal were trying to convey, the Rambam didn't make it up out of whole cloth. We saw already, he took it from this Medrash Halacha, he took it from this Gemara, is that there needs to be at all times a kviyut of the Moadim, a certain establishment that this is when the holiday is. Who's doing that? The Jewish people.
I understand, but when Ira gets up and announces the Mola,
Yeah,
he's speaking in a little book
yeah.
that
That tells you when it is in
It
Yerushalayim.
tells you when it is.
Right, right.
Now, maybe you can say, because everybody is speaking in the little book, that is the kaviyut of.
It's not the kviyut. That's not the kviyut of anything. That's the point. It's no longer at the Kiddush HaChodesh time. There's no Kiddush HaChodesh now. I mean, we call it Birchah HaChodesh, not Kiddush
The
HaChodesh.
observance of the Chagim at the
Yeah,
times that
yeah.
have been fixed.
Yeah, right.
But why does the Rav have to go through this whole process?
Because he's trying to explain the original questions were variously, why did the Rambam go out of his way to make it seem as if there is a Beit Din in Yerushalayim that's still being koveya even now? Why did the Rambam claim that you always need some kind of kviyut? Why did the Rambam not just say, like the Ramban said to him, what? There's no Beit Din in Yerushalayim. Get over it. All there is a calendar on the wall. The Rav says, but if you look in the Rambam, he's saying the calendar on the wall is to tell you how to be Makadesh, the Zman is through being Makadesh Yisrael V'Azmanim. And we are Makadesh, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. It's true we're all coordinating using a calendar, but that use of the calendar is ratified no longer by Sanhedrin HaGadol, it's ratified by the whole Jewish people. And you need an act of ratification by an authority. The authority is Klal Yisrael because of our Kedusha. Okay?
So we understand that what I'm saying, he's focusing on an act of ratification rather than kaviyut.
Kviyut equals an act of ratification, the establishment, ratification of something that's happening. It's it's being established through that act. Okay, look at the bottom paragraph. I have the Lasheni. Bokev olam me'anacha rishona v'hu ki kvir al pi re'iyah tluya bebeitin agadol mitkemed al yado ol yedei beitin shel gimel shenit natnu lahem hasanhedrin reshut v'yav shel choyse shetef maaseh kviyut v'kiddush. The second difference between kiddush al pi re'iyah and kiddush al pi cheshbon, again, the first one is that Kiddush al pi re'iyah requires a Beit Din, and Kiddush by the Chesbon is by the Kiddush of the Zmanim, done by the Jewish people, upholding and guarding, sanctifying and observing all the holidays. That's the first one. The second one comes out from the assumption at the beginning, which is that Kviyut by re'iyah needs a Beit Din HaGadol, and it's established by them, or by a Beit Din of three that were given permission by the Sanhedrin to do so. Because it's impossible for the whole Jewish nation to participate in an act of kviyut and kiddush. With every Jew gonna show up in Yerushalayim, it can't happen. That's why the Beit Din HaGadol is representational. Through their sanctification is the establishment of the onset of the fixing of the holidays through the Jewish nation. Which is not the case when the main establishment is not actually happening by any witnesses witnessing anything or signs that they have to be ma'aber the shana. But rather in the second situation, i.e. using the cheshbon, means that it's known that the whole Jewish people knows the calendar and is going to ratify the calendar essentially and thereby establish the calendar anew every time. But how? Through the keeping of the Yom Tovim. Memela otzma shel kviyut naaseh al yedei kol Yisrael bofen bilti emtzai v'lo tzrichina lekoach Beit Din shel Sanhedrin Gedola. It seems that the force of the establishment by the Jewish nation does not require an intermediary. You don't need the force of the Beit Din of the Sanhedrin Gedola. It's not required anymore. at this time. V'odzot, debating eno ola be'erko b'nogel k'viyat hachala al yedei shmirat v'asiyat hamoadim al shar adam Yisrael. Furthermore, a beit din in any place would not have in its value, in its stature, anything over any other Jew who is going to go out and observe the Yom Tov. It's no longer in the hands of a beit din. The beit din is only required when you have a Kiddush al pi re'iyah, because the beit din Kiddush al pi re'iyah requires their involvement as the representatives of the whole nation. But if you don't need that because you're not doing re'iyah, you're using the Chesbon, so they have no stature over any Jew that's out there. Right, they're not higher. And therefore, the whole notion of the status of the beit din itself, the whole status that they have is uprooted. It doesn't exist. They don't need it. The fact that the Jews keep the holidays at the same time, that's what establishes the months and the years in coordination with this calculation. The keeping of the Yom Tovim is what's infusing these times with sanctity. Like we said, Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh Shabbat, Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh Yisrael v'Hazmanim, Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh HaShabbat v'Yisrael v'Hazmanim, when it's Shabbos and Yom Tov. We saw this before.
Yeah, but
Remember?
Shabbat creates itself.
That's exactly what we learned. Yeah. Another question, or can I say that we're on the cusp of it, friends. We can get there, and then in the next 12 minutes, it's going to open the door. You're going to be like, well, like that was my reaction when I first learned it again now.
Keep going, because I haven't, Larry knocked me out.
Okay, so here we are, page Nunchet. Vasher al Kenira, second paragraph, page Nunchet. And therefore, it would seem the Zel Perisham Shal Tivir HaRambam de Achshav, quote, Ein anu somchim ela al chashbon b'nei Eretz Yisrael kviyatam ukviyat b'nei Eretz Yisrael otahu shiyeh Rosh Chodesh ohu Yom Tov lo b'nei cheshbon shadam chashvim. Now, based on everything we said, this is how we're going to explain, and we're going to understand anew what the Rambam meant in his extremely cryptic words. This is the Rambam's writing from Foshtat, from the 12th century, end of the 12th century, in the 1100s. This is what he's writing. We are not relying except upon the calculation of those who live in Eretz Yisrael and what they establish, and the establishment of the Bnei Eretz Yisrael. That's Rosh Chodesh, that's Yom Tov, and it's not because of the Chesbon that we're calculating when we live in Foshtat. The Ramban samach kekruchya. The Ramban crowed like a rooster. That's the expression. He was screaming at him. Hey, Chanhu, Beitin HaKovea Bisman Hazeh. What are you talking about? What Beitin? What Eretz Yisrael? What Bnei Eretz Yisrael? Who's Kovea? What are you talking about? It's a beautiful flourish with your pen from the inkwell, but it doesn't compute. Danit Bar. Now he explains. The Kviya Utzu, Al Pi HaCheshbon, Ein Zekuka L'Maaseh Kiddush Al Yedei Beitin. But what we just showed is that when it's Kiddush Al Pi Cheshbon, not Al Pi Re'iyah, we no longer even need a Beit Din. The Rambam was not pretending there was a Beit Din in Eretz Yisrael. Look back at his words right now at the beginning of this paragraph. He spoke about the Bnei Eretz Yisrael repeatedly. The people who live in Eretz Yisrael. It's their observance, their keeping of the holidays. Their establishment, or their fulfillment of the holidays. That's what establishes the months. That's what brings about the idea of a leap year, which is coordinated with the calendar. This establishment does have its onset and its fulfillment through all of the Jews. But the fact that the Rambam wrote specifically, Ki b'nei Eretz Yisrael him ha'kovim, lo b'nei chutz la'aretz. And notice that he said it's the people who are from Eretz Yisrael, not the people from Chutz La'aretz. The content of his words are, the Bnei Eretz Yisrael, Davka, the Jews who live in Eretz Yisrael, apropos a visitor from Eretz Yisrael. Al yedei niog ha'moadot al pi ha'cheshbon, mikadshim et hazmanim v'gormim la'moadot shikbeu. Davka, the Jews who live in Eretz Yisrael, through their upholding and fulfilling the Yomim Tovim, using the calendar, they are the ones that sanctify all of the Zmanim, and they cause all of the holidays to be established. Bram, However, ein lanu kviyut acheret ela zu shel shmirat hamoadim bilvad. However, we have no other way to establish it other than the common people, the Jews, keeping the Yom Tovim. V'shita the Rambam he. The Gaber Gela Kviyut Memela Shel Moadim Ayadeni Hugam V'Kiyum Din Eretz Yisrael Shel Eretz Yisrael Nemar the Bnei Yisrael Hema HaKovim HaMekadshim VeMa'abrim VeEretz Yisrael Lo Nemar B'Misuyam B'Masa Kiddush V'Ibur Meitkaim Al Yedei Beitin El B'Kviyut Moadim Bichlal. Basically, the Rambam Shita is that when it comes to the establishment of the holidays through their observance, Mekadesh Yisrael V'Azmanim, and I'm saying this, the Rav didn't say it this way, Mekadesh Yisrael V'Azmanim doesn't just mean the Jewish people, but it means Mekadesh Yisrael, Bnei Eretz Yisrael. The Jews who still live in Eretz Yisrael. Aye, but there's no state. Aye, but there's no Beitin. Doesn't matter.
Also, there was a betting. It always kept
The point, Beseder. True, but the point is that in the time of the Galut, when there's such a weak situation, Eretz Yisrael, if there were still Jews, which there always were Jews, still, Eretz Yisrael was never completely eradicated from Jews. There was always even a small group. They're the ones who are doing it, and it's radiating outward without the use of a Beit Din that's Koveya. There's no Beit Din Yerushalayim that's Koveya in the time of the Rambam. Right, the Rosh Mishans comes, in the early 1200s. He's in Akov. They didn't go. They don't have this, so it doesn't matter. The Rav says that's the Rambam is teaching us. The din Eretz Yisrael ne'amar bikarob b'maseh Beit Din habab b'makom Kiddush kol Yisrael. Ve'al kain gam kshe'amodim nikba'im al yedei Yisrael ba'atzman ba'ofen yashar ba'ag zerat hakatuv ki mitzion teitzei Torah v'chulei. But who's the Torah coming from? Not the Beit Din HaGadol, not the Beit Din Yerushalayim, or of Akko, of Tzfat, of Shechem, but the common Jews who are keeping the Yom Tovim still, no matter what, in Eretz Yisrael. Kira kviat b'nei Eretz Yisrael mekadeshet et esmanim v'lo kviat b'nei chutz la'aretz. You'll tell me that Jews in Fostat and Tunisia and in Ukraine and in New York and in Chicago and wherever else in the world are keeping the Yom Tovim, and that's the Mekadesh Yisrael Esmanim? Yeah, it's true. But where is it flowing from? Eretz Yisrael, the Jews of Eretz Yisrael. And the Rambam is writing that at no time in Jewish, that's this point, at no time in Jewish history, do you understand what just happened? Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot, wherever you are in the world, you only keep it the day you keep it because you have a calendar on the wall. Don't think you figured it out. You're all that. You're just reflecting with the Jews of Eretz Yisrael, be they even a handful. They're keeping the Yom Tovim through the Galut. That's Kiddush al pi Chesbon. Oh, let me finish. Baram, atos the Rosh Hashanah tzitanu lemala cholkim al zeh v'sovrim digam b'nei Bavel chom likbor azman midei shmirat hamoadim. Remember, that was the Tosafot from Daf Chaf, the challenging Tosafot where the guy came from Eretz Yisrael. They kept Yom Kippur on a different day. Yeah, I got to do one more paragraph. You see the exclamation points on Nuntat? That tells you we're at, are you with me? Did I lose your mark or not? I lost you. Okay, go ahead.
If we learned this, let's say if we had learned this essay before we started the Messiah. Right?
Let's say.
Right? And the first parak would be very different.
Meaning
we have all these things tied to when the dates are, right? We have kings, we have sacrifices, we have delays, all tied to something that now is being decided by, a group of people sitting around.
The Jews. They're not sitting around. They're getting ready for Yom Tov.
No, I'm saying, but I mean, not.
Because when we're learning there, we're learning when it was and what it will be when the Beit Din HaGadol is reconvened.
It'd say, Reuven owns Shimon, whatever, 300 shkalim because the debt was due, and they're like, well, sorry, you had your dates wrong, and I mean, it seems like it's a balagan.
No, that is when there's a Beit Din that actually make it happen. All that still stands. That was Kiddush al pi Re'iyah.
Okay.
And that Kiddush al pi Re'iyah was the system until it wasn't the system. Okay. And then came the Kiddush al pi Chesbon. The Rav's point is the Rambam did not think that Kiddush al pi Chesbon was just a generator or life support, keeping the Jews going to have the dates aligned with how they used to be. It's much more than that. And it's an ongoing living process even now where we're Mekadesh the Chodesh, we're Mekadesh the Zman, because it was Mekadesh the Zmanim, the Moadim, but it's connected back, therefore, to the entire calendar. Judah, please.
Even though Beit Din קבע את המולד, כן? בכל זאת החשבון לא נשכח.
ידעו את החשבון, נכון. לפי הרמב"ם ידעו את החשבון כל הזמן.
Answer the gentleman that came from Israel to Babel and missed Yom Kippur.
He was going to have Yom Kippur still, and they told him you missed it.
So he missed it.
No. The Rav says the last sentence is that it's hard to understand how that story could have happened. There was a Beit Din still that was in existence. So how did the people in Bavel go off on their own and make it a different day? They
No?
So, but I'm telling you, yes, but the Chesbon was, we had seen previously that Chazal said from the days of Ezra HaSofer, it never happened that there was more than 29 days in Elul. It was always only 29 days in Elul. The next day was Aleph Tishrei. That's how it was every year. So 99.99999%. One year the guy didn't show up. I said, okay, so it must be. That's like every other year. Then they're finishing their Yom Kippur, Tosfos says, and this other guy shows up. Okay, atem afilu shogegim afilu mutim. You made a mistake. You him. It's established. So according to Tosfos, doesn't really. It is a question. He writes it in brackets here. But Brahma Tosfos Rosh Hashanah tzitat nulamala chokim aziv sovrim the gam bnei bavi chol nikbor es manim edei shmirat moadim. But the Rav's point is no. The shmirat moadim al yidei bnei Yisrael be'eretz Yisrael is what's kovea when it's al pi cheshbon. But when do they not do this cheshbon system? Which according to the Rav, according to the Rambam rather, is from all the way back. They know it. They know the calculations. No? They didn't come up with it because we were stuck. What can we do? They knew it. They knew it. But they didn't use it because they were using this other system, Al Pi Re'iyah, except when they had to jigger it a little bit to make sure that it was going to be in the right time. We talked about that also. Right?
This person that came from Bavel, they said it's Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
He was on the road. The Bavel and the Wetzel wasn't Skokie to West.
Yeah. A little trip.
Maybe he got mugged. Maybe
it took some time. It took some time. Yeah.
So maybe he made a mistake.
Well, that's what they basically tell him. You must have been mistaken with the date, and then they don't have to keep what you say. Could be. It's a long story. We're now there. We passed it right. We're a few. Let's do the last paragraph of the page, and then we got to say goodbye. Let's go. We got to do it. We got to do Lefia Mavur and Lamala. What we said above. Bear with me. Let's go. Bottom paragraph. Lefia Mavur Lamala. Dalach is a beitin agol of Kiddush HaChodesh. Oh, I never got to you, Ira. I'm sorry. Did you still have your question?
No.
Okay, we did it. Lefia Mavur Lamala. Dalach is a beitin agol of Kiddush HaChodesh. V'Rosh Hashanah Nemer L'Chatchila B'din. Dat Rav Yisrael. V'Ikara Talui B'Samchuto Shel Beitin Agadol. Du Amura Ura V'Ikar Tor Shabal Peh. L'Karesh Ol Abba B'Shem Kol Yisrael Mishum Shema Asav Hema Maaseh Kol Uma. We said that's the whole idea of L'Chatchila, that when they're doing their thing, when there is a Beit Din Agad in Yerushalayim, that they're going to do, or somewhere in Eretz Yisrael, they're going to be involved in the Kiddush HaChodesh, the Ibra Hashanah. They're doing so, L'Chatchila, they represent the whole Jewish nation. And everything goes according to their authority as a Beit Din Agadol, right? They're the pillar of instruction, and they are Torah Shabal Peh, embodiment of Torah Shabal Peh in the world at that time. I'm now on line 1, 2, 3, 4 after the period. We could say that maybe that halacha is not dependent specifically on there being a Sanhedrin Gedola v'dineha. Remember we said there's a roster Sanhedrin Bet Amud Aleph, which is also in Rambam Hilchot Sanhedrin Parak Hey. Neither of those includes Kiddush HaChodesh. The bitlu la'acha shigala miskara gazit. Maybe that was already canceled at the time when the Sanhedrin Gadol left the Gazit. El tluya b'din hora. Maybe it had to do with their feature of being those who give instruction. Im himachriya ba'ad kol Yisrael, if they make a decision on behalf of the whole Jewish nation. Ve'im ach yashnam chachmei Yisrael shebiyadam l'takein v'ligzor lanhig minhagim v'siagim usiagim la'asot l'chavtza shel Torah shebal peh al pi gzeret hakativ lo tasur. V'al pi ha'aseh shel v'asiti k'chol yashir ruchim v'vur b'Rambam paragraph michom Rambam memela ruim hema l'kadesh l'chodesh al pi re'iyah l'aved hashana al pi simanei ha'ibur mishum shema'aseim kol l'maaseh kol Yisrael v'yesh b'chlal kviyatam kviyat ha'uma kula. What the Rav says here is, wait a minute. Instead of saying there's two different sources of authority, Sanhedrin has a source of authority, the Kam Teva Alita, chapter 17 in Sefer Dvarim, and another one that comes from Parsha Ba'alotcha, Esfer Lishivim Ish. In the former case, they're the legislators, they're the judiciary. In the latter case, they're the representatives for national functions. What if the national functions piece actually stems from the fact that they are the judiciary, they are the legislators, they're the authority when it comes to instruction? Since they're that authority, that's how they get to become the representatives. It's predicated on it. So if now they don't have that feature, they no longer have the feature of actually functioning as the judiciary, but they're still teachers, So they still could be the representatives of the Jewish people. So what if there wasn't a Sanhedrin Gadol, but there were other people who could function as the teachers of the whole Jewish nation? That was the whole Jewish nation accepted. That's the Gadol Hador. These are the Gedolei Hador. And look what he writes now. That's why I put an exclamation point. V'im kain, af la'achar shegala beitin v'kolim b'mikdash, the bitl kol dina Sanhedrin Gedola. Therefore, by the way, he just answered the Ramban's question. The Ramban said to the Rambam, you're harping on this business that the Beitin Kavua is going to decide, but 40 years before the Churban, they were already taken away from Lishkat Gazit. They couldn't even put anyone to death. They were in Yavna. They were in, not, well, before Yavna, they were in the Chanut in Yerushalayim, call it the Cardo, not the Cardo, but something like that. And then after that, they went to Yavna, and then after that, they're in all different places, in Usha and Sipori, and finally in Tver. So what are you doing? The Rav now says, excuse me, but what the Rambam is trying to argue is that af la'achar shabita legamre b'teveria mikol makom. Now the underlying part, harei mesoret Torah sheba'al peh mesur haita adayin l'chachmei Yisrael shebe'eretz Yisrael. Even if there was no Sanhedrin Gadol anymore, were there still rabbis in Eretz Yisrael that the entire nation looked to at that time, who were the Baalei Masorah, indisputably in Eretz Yisrael? There were. V'al yedeihem nitkaima shalshalat hakabbalah mimoshe Rabbeinu alav shalom. There was an unbroken chain from Moshe Rabbeinu to these people. The Rambam in the introduction to the Mishnah Torah gives you the whole list from Moshe Rabbeinu till Rav Ashi, every name. We have a halacha psuka that tells even there was no Beit Din Gadol. Lo tasser, you have to listen to the instruction of the greats of the generations. That's right. Still true. The harbe takanot nitkanu la'achar shegala Beit Din Gadol b'mekomo v'gam la'achar shebitul legamrei b'mei Tanai v'Amoraim al-Chadim Talmud. After the Beit Din Gadol was already out of its place for centuries, there was still Tanaim and Amoraim running around, and they were making Gzerot and Siagim and Takanot, and everybody listened to them. V'din otan takanot shaveh l'din takanot shinchachu de Beit Din Gadol shlishkat gazit. The force of those dinim made by those Rabbanim, because they were at the helm of the generation, was the equivalent of that which would have been done by the Sanhedrin Gadol and Lishkat Gazit. The kulan mehavot chetz shel Torah sheba'al peh. They all are a substance, an object of Torah Sheba'al Peh. V'nichlu b'lav t'lo, all included under the rubric of that one prohibition: do not stray from the words of them, of the sages. L'dat Rambam. Umishum techachmei Masorah b'fnei atzmam yicholim legzor l'takein v'ratam machriya b'chol dinei Torah k'mo rat Beit Din Gadol v'gam heim ikar Torah Sheba'al Peh v'amud ora. Since the chachmei Masorah on their own can make decrees, can make enactments, their instruction is decisive for all matters of Torah, like the Beit Din Gadol in its time. V'gam heim ikar Torah, they are the mainstay of Torah or the oral tradition and the pillar of its instruction. Mimeli yicholim hay l'kadosh al pi hariyah u'la'abed hashana al pi hasimanim ba'ad kol Yisrael kimo Beit Din Gadol. Then by they were also able to be Makadosh using Re'iyah and to be Ma'aber the Shana long after there wasn't a Beit Din Gadol. That's actually what ended up happening. That's why it says they kept going to the days of Abai and Rava. Bram, Bisman Shai Beit Din Gadol Kayam, Haitam Masorah Biyado. When there was a Beit Din Gadol, however, then the Masorah belongs to them. No individual could do what they wanted to do. Now it was put in the hands of the Chachmei Kabbalah. It was Zechaluk Kviyat Moadim. One more thing for tonight. And I got to run. I'm already late for the next meeting. It was Zechaluk Kviyat Moadim. Mishar Adinim Hatlim Beit Din Gadol. The Kulam Bitlu Techef Kshegaltas Nedim Makoma. Right? You see, therefore, the difference between the establishment of the holidays from the other dinim that were dependent on the status of the Beit Din Gadol being the Beit Din Gadol. They were all nullified as soon as the Sanhedrin moved away from its place. See the Tosfot and Sanhedrin, right? Ella, Sanhedrin Yodalet Amabet, Malamed, right? Sota Zayin Amabet, Gemara Avodah Zarah, Masha Enkin Fiat Moadim Al Pi Hariyah, Haita Kayamet Gam La'achar Bitul Sanhedrin Umusura Haita Musura Haita. Excuse me, the Chachmei HaMasorah. It was given over to the Chachmei HaMasorah. Eretz Yisrael remains a central element of the authority of the Chachmei HaMasorah, and in the absence of the Chachmei HaMasorah, the very fact that there are just plain Yidden who didn't speak Yiddish because they lived in Eretz Yisrael. But okay, until Yiddish was invented and they came. They're keeping the Yamim Tovim. Everybody else is doing like them. It's based on what they're doing. What authority they had? The fact they live, some people that are uneducated, they're keeping it. No, that's exactly the point. They stayed in Eretz Yisrael, and they're still being Makadosh Yisrael v'azmanim in a certain way, and I'm going farther afield than the Rav over here, but it's a play on the words, and I'm into this, as you know, professionally. Mekadesh, so I do this all the time. Hopefully, I'm not making it up too bad. Mekadesh Yisrael v'azmanim. Again, going back to that point, it's not just Mekadesh Yisrael. The Jewish people were sanctified by Hashem, and therefore the Jewish people are then Mekadesh the Zmanim. Is the Jewish people in Eretz Yisrael, I said that previously, are Mekadesh the Zmanim, and more than that, that the Jews who live in Chutz La'aretz, who are keeping the Yom Tovim, are establishing their keeping of the Yom Tovim as, in a way, based on the Rambam, the exact lashon that he used, based on the fact that they have their sanctity flowing from where? The Jews of Eretz Yisrael, who are themselves making the kviyut of the Mo'adim, and everything flows around that. Obviously, there's a bunch of pages left, so that he says yet more, but you just heard the basic thesis. I don't know how you'll sleep tonight. I certainly won't. Okay, I got to run. It's super late. Yeah. Why ruin a good thing? I want to finish this. We again, no shear next week because it's just too crazy. It's more clear. The following week there will be a shear. I don't know what night. Obviously not Leil Tanit Esther, right? Like not the night of the Suda. Not Leil Purim, not Yom Purim, and then it's Pesach. Yeah, don't worry. We'll figure it out. I'll send you the information. Have a great